The air felt suffocating as I stepped out of my car. The weight of the moment was heavier than any I had ever experienced. My heart was racing, and the dread in my chest was almost unbearable. The driveway seemed to stretch on forever, each step I took feeling like I was moving in slow motion. Every part of me screamed to turn around, to get back in the car and drive away, but I knew I couldn't. I had to do this. As I made my way down the driveway, my mind was clouded with a whirlwind of thoughts, doubts, fears, memories I had tried to bury for so long. This was the moment I had been avoiding my entire life. The day had come when I had no choice but to face my past and confront the people I had been hiding from for decades. I had been running from the truth for so long. But now, at 48 years old, I can't run any longer. Reaching the door, I hesitated before knocking. I wanted to avoid this, but I knew it was time. The years of silence, of burying everything deep inside, had led me here. The past was no longer something I could ignore. My Aunt Barbara and Uncle Norman were inside. Aunt Barbara had been asking questions about my health recently, noticing how incredibly thin I had become, the weight dropping off me at an alarming rate. This was due to the photos and videos I had sent to my Aunt Claire, and she hadn't seen me in person in quite some time. But it wasn't okay. I wasn't okay. I took a deep breath and knocked. The sound echoed in the quiet, and I felt my pulse quicken. Aunt Barbara opened the door, her face immediately registering concern. I knew she had been worried about me for a while, but this was more than just my health. This was the moment I had been dreading, the moment I had to speak the truth. "Come in, sweetheart," Aunt Barbara said softly, her voice filled with worry. "Are you okay?" I stepped inside, the familiar smell of the kitchen welcoming me, but doing nothing to ease the tightness in my chest. Uncle Norman was sitting at the kitchen table, his eyes locking onto mine as I made my way to the center of the room. Aunt Barbara followed me in, her concern written all over her face. I could feel the weight of their gazes on me, but it wasn't the concern I had anticipated. It was something deeper, something I couldn't yet name. "I need to tell you something," I started, my voice barely above a whisper. My throat felt like it was closing up. The words stuck in my chest. Aunt Barbara's eyes softened, but I could see the worry deepening. "What's going on, honey?" she asked gently. "You've been looking so thin lately. I know you've been sick, but you haven't said much about it." I took a deep breath, swallowing back the lump in my throat. "The doctors aren't sure if it's bladder or kidney cancer," I said, each word like a weight lifting off my chest, even as a heavier one took its place. "They found multiple lesions on my kidney. I've been urinating blood, and I've lost an obscene amount of weight. I'm down to 165 pounds from 300 pounds. The room fell into silence, and I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Aunt Barbara's face paled, and she stepped closer to me, her hand gently touching my arm. Uncle Norman sat there, his expression frozen, as if he didn't know what to say, or maybe couldn't believe what he was hearing. I felt a wave of shame wash over me, but I pushed it aside. I had to tell them everything, even if it wasn't just about my health. "Aunt Barbara, Uncle Norman," I said, my voice growing stronger. "There's more. I need to tell you the truth about everything, about why I've been hiding from you for so long. I can't carry this alone anymore." Aunt Barbara's eyes were filled with confusion and concern, but she stayed silent, waiting for me to continue. Uncle Norman seemed to brace himself, as if he had already guessed where this conversation was headed. "I've been living in fear of my father, of Roger, more than I've ever feared anything else in my life," I said, the words flowing out faster than I intended. "I was afraid of him more than I was afraid of God. He was violent towards me, physically violent. He abused me in every way imaginable, and I couldn't escape him. No one ever saw it, or if they did, they didn't speak up. I was alone in that." I took a deep breath, my eyes welling with tears, but I didn't allow them to fall. I couldn't. "You don't know what it was like living in that house with him," I continued. "The constant fear, the feeling that no matter what I did, it would never be enough. I had to hide, pretend that everything was fine even when it wasn't, and I still can't shake that fear. It's with me every day. And now, I'm facing something even bigger, something I can't hide anymore." Aunt Barbara's eyes were filled with emotion, and I saw her shoulders trembling as she held back her own tears. She reached out, pulling me into a tight embrace. "It's okay," she whispered through her tears, her voice shaky. "I'm so sorry you went through that, honey. I had no idea. I wish I had known." But even as I felt her arms around me, the comfort wasn't enough to erase the truth. I knew that nothing would ever be the same after this conversation. I stepped back, wiping my eyes. I don't know if things will ever be okay between us, but I couldn't keep hiding this anymore. I needed you to know the truth. Aunt Barbara nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, sweetie. I had no idea." She hugged me again, but I could feel the weight of the moment sinking in. But even as she cried and held me, a part of me knew that this wouldn't change anything. I turned to walk away, feeling the finality of it. I knew deep down that this would be the last time I would ever speak to my aunt and uncle. Their silence was deafening, and I knew that no matter what I said, I would always be the liar, the deceiver, the scapegoat, the black sheep. And no matter how hard I tried, I would never be able to shake that label. As I walked toward the door, Aunt Barbara's voice broke through the silence. "It's okay, honey," she said, crying as she reached for me. "Oh, we love you. It'll be okay." But I knew it wasn't going to be okay. Nothing would ever be okay again. I stepped out the door, closing it softly behind me, and as I walked down the driveway, I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me. This was the moment I had been dreading, and now that it was over, all I had was the knowledge that the past would always define me. It would always haunt me, and no matter what I did, I would never escape it. But as the night air wrapped around me, something else lingered. Something darker, something I couldn't yet name. The echoes of old songs, old memories, seemed to whisper through the silence, calling me towards something I had long tried to avoid. It was almost as if I was being drawn to a place where the past and present could no longer be separated. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I knew that whatever came next, I couldn't run anymore.